Hello and welcome to Conscious Curiosities, where we unlock the wisdom of the universe that lies within us. I'm Maria Luz, your host, an astrologer, certified hypnotist, and developing psychic medium. Today's show is Where are the big questions in your life? Desperately seeking Jupiter. In this episode, who is most in need of understanding Jupiter and why? The astronomy of Jupiter, the mythology of Jupiter slash Zeus, what Jupiter and Sagittarius energy does in your life. Hint, expansion. So today I'm doing something new and I'm recording video at the same time I'm doing audio so I can post this on my YouTube channel. And if you want to personally work with me, you can visit my website, marialuz.online. And I offer astrohypnosis, which is a combination of an astrology reading looking at your evolutionary astrology and a past life regression and soul meeting in hypnosis. I also offer astrology readings for whatever you want to look at, whether it's a certain time period or a certain area of your life, and transformational hypnosis. I also have one group workshop up there right now, and it happens to include Jupiter. It's on Saturn and Jupiter, and it happens to be on the day that Jupiter is conjunct the Sun on May 18th. So it's a Saturday. It'll be recorded if you can't make it. So check that out as well. Okay, so we should all be interested in Jupiter, is the answer to that first question. And in fact, just about a week or so ago, there was a major astrological event that happens really infrequently. And Jupiter and the planet Uranus were together, also known as a conjunction, in the sign of Taurus for the first time since 1941. And these meetings of those two planets, even though they happen every, I think, 14 years, they happen very infrequently for whatever reason in the sign of Taurus. So when those meetings occur, however, they do seem to be linked to some innovation or technology that is kicked off and that really kind of changes our day-to-day lives. So if you are nerdy about history or astrology and the combination thereof, I would go to the Astrology podcast, and they devoted 2 episodes recently. You can just go down their super cool rabbit hole about it. And for let's see, for today, I would say get comfy. I'm going to give you a little refresh on the birth chart and kind of how to find Jupiter and its associated sign, Sagittarius. But for now, just think about those areas of life where you might be, say, overly optimistic, or you don't know, like when too much is too much. Or when you kind of get on your high horse about your morals and beliefs. That is likely where your Jupiter or maybe your Sagittarius rules that house. So to back to finding where they are in your chart. Okay, so if you remember the birth chart, and you can find one online, or you can download an app for your phone, like Time Passages or CoStar or the Channing app. So when you're looking at the wheel, if you're imagining an old school analog clock and 9 p.m. would be like on the left, that's your rising. That kicks off the first house. And then you're going counterclockwise and you're counting each section, and there will be 12. And those are the 12 houses. So you're counterclockwise, starting at the first house with your rising, and then on around the clock again until you get back to the 12th house, which is right before that line. And you will also look for the sign of Jupiter, the glyph, and that looks like a stylized number 4. So you'll be looking for that Jupiter symbol as you're looking and counting which house it's in. And you'll also want to look at the outside of the wheel, and that has the glyphs for the signs that are on the houses. And Sagittarius looks like an arrow with a hash mark through it. You may also have a table that came with your chart, and that would also give you the same information. Okay, so what I wanted to start with is this little explanation about signs, planets, and houses. And it comes from a book by Stephen Forrest, who is this amazing astrologer, and he focuses on evolutionary astrology. And he's written several books, and he's written a book on each of the elements that are key in astrology. So in the Book of Fire, oh, and Stephen Forrest, he has a Sun Jupiter conjunction, which means they're together. And that's what's going to happen on May 18th. His conjunction happens to be in the sign of Capricorn in the second house, in case you were nosy like I am. Okay. So he says a sign represents a psychological impulse. It represents a need or a drive or a value. It sets the agenda for whatever the planet it contains. Okay, so that's the sign. And then a house represents the behaviors that arise naturally as we act upon that agenda or impulse. So go ahead and look at your chart for that information where Jupiter is and where Sagittarius is. And while you do that, I will give my summaries of the astronomy and the mythology. Jupiter is the oldest and largest planet in our solar system, and it formed from like leftover dust and gases from the sun's formation with the Big Bang about 4.5 billion years ago. It has the shortest day in the solar system at only 10 and a half hours, but it has a long orbit around the sun. It takes 12 years. It's the fifth planet from the sun, and 1,000 Earths could fit inside of it. So if the Earth were the size of a grape, Jupiter would be the size of a basketball. And it's one of the four gas giants of our solar system. The others are Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. It's likely not to be able to sustain life like we have here on Earth, but it has 95 moons, and which is another rabbit hole you could go down to if you like astronomy. This seems like there's whole like disciplines devoted to Jupiter's moons. However, it seems as though at least one of them would be able to host life similar to what we have here based on the gases and things there. And I know I saw an episode of Nova. I'm not sure how old it is now, but it basically said Jupiter kind of saved Earth because it's so big, it acted like a shield. And so all of the like crap that was flying around during the Big Bang that could have like knocked Earth out of the sky, it kept that from happening. So that's pretty cool. And then the mythology, okay, so Zeus is the Greek name, and then Jupiter is the Roman name. So I'll use them kind of interchangeably, probably. But most of us learned about Zeus back in elementary school. And, maybe you went through your phase where you were super into the Greek gods and goddesses. Or maybe you, depending on how old you are, maybe you were exposed through the Disney movie Hercules, which has some really good music. And Zeus was king of all the other gods, goddesses, and mortals, and he ruled the sky and thunder. And I think in the mythology, the world was divided up, and Hades got the underworld, and then Poseidon, or also known as Neptune, got the sea, and then Zeus or Jupiter got the sky. And he is the son of Kronos, which is also known as Saturn in Roman mythology. And they're like all of the other gods and goddesses, there are just lots of wild and wacky adventures that he had. But mostly he's known for he swallowed his first wife when she was pregnant because he was paranoid that the child was going to be a threat to him. He also married his sister, and then he had a bunch of affairs, and he was very like into kink and had, I don't know, just all kinds of legitimate and illegitimate children. Um, yeah, and he's often portrayed with a scepter in one hand and a thunderbolt in the other. And then in Norse mythology, you may see him as Thor or Odin. And now moving on to the astrology piece of things, um, Jupiter is considered one of the benefics, and so with that is often associated with luck. However, like everything else in astrology, it's nuanced, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. And where you might see Mars is fire that directs energy, it really like focuses your energy all in one direction. Hopefully, it's the right direction. But Jupiter, unlike Mars, just the energy goes everywhere. It just expands it. There's no one direction. And being associated with Sagittarius, that's where that fire comes in. So Aries associated with Mars, also fire. Leo, another fire sign associated with the sun. And then Sagittarius and Jupiter associated with fire. And of those three fire signs, Sagittarius is the mutable one. So Leo is fixed and Aries is cardinal. So where you have Sagittarius in your chart, you might not like to be confined in that particular area. You may just really dislike routine, and you may just seek out new and more. Those are kind of keywords, and I'll get into some more as well. So Jupiter also expands the energy of any planet that it happens to be close to, or another word again is conjunction, including your ascendant or your rising line, even though that's not a planet. So, um, of course, Sagittarius suns and Sagittarius moons will find Jupiter super important. But also, if you are Sagittarius rising, because essentially, when we look at the rising sign, we look at the planet that sign rules, or sorry, the planet that rules that sign, and that is essentially your chart ruler. So if you're a Sagittarius rising, then Jupiter is essentially your chart ruler. And if you're a Sagittarius sun, then that energy comes up in your conscious purpose. And if you're a Sagittarius moon, it comes up in your kind of how you feel emotionally cozy. So say your sun might be the flavor of your conscious agenda, and for your moon, the flavor of your emotional agenda. And onto those key words that I think of with Jupiter and Sagittarius energy, seeking, philosopher, like just thinking in moral terms. Again, as opposed to its polarity, Gemini, which is more of the analytical thinking or the curiosity about details, whereas Jupiter is that really broad curiosity, the bigger questions, like the title of this episode. It's again not knowing when too much is too much. It's not wanting to settle into a pattern or a routine. It's along with those big questions, it wants to have the experiences to gain that knowledge. And it's not necessarily looking for answers. It kind of likes to keep on those big questions. With that, it kind of may get hooked on this optimism, this possibility, always kind of looking for possibilities. And, in a way, that's also really beautiful because that's can be called hope. It's kind of bypassing the negativity that might come up in order to have hope. And again, along with the polarity of the Gemini Sagittarius polarity, it's where Gemini is more left brain and analytical. Jupiter might be that more right brain and intuitive way. It's yeah, it's where you're gonna really ask those big questions, where you're gonna expand, where you're gonna kind of want to go big and not limit yourself. And the other thing that is associated with Jupiter and Sagittarius is the ninth house. And most astrologers say, like, if you were to distill it down, it would probably be like religion or higher learning. or travel. Those are kind of, I think, the top three things that you see associated with ninth house. It's also just generally like your expansion of awareness in all of those things like religion, travel, metaphysics, ethics, morality, the superconscious mind. And then it's also associated with some professions like publishing or the law or judges, also with teachers and gurus. So, whereas the third house in Gemini is associated more with the student archetype. The other thing that I did was just I looked back at the Bloch and George Astrology for Yourself, which is a book and a workbook that I can't recommend it enough. It's so comprehensive and it really can help you if you're super motivated to study on yourself and you can do your own pace through it. So they have a table in there that helps you understand Jupiter in your life. And so they broke it down by the four elements in astrology. So there are three signs again for each element. And then they came up with a phrase about how I find meaning and how I expand my awareness for each of those elements when you take Jupiter and Sagittarius energy into consideration. And also, they were focusing more on Jupiter and where Jupiter is in your chart, but I kind of extend it to where Sagittarius sits in your chart and which house is impacted by Sagittarius energy. So, for the fire signs, which are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, how I find meaning is through self expression, and how I expand my awareness is through new adventures. And the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, how I find meaning is in concrete reality, and how I expand my awareness is by building new forms. For our air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, how I find meaning is through teaching others, and how I expand my awareness is by discovering new ideas. And for our water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, how I find meaning is through emotional closeness, and how I expand my awareness is by exploring the hidden. And in that workbook, because I used it when I was learning, there's also a little journal entry space. And I wrote regarding my Jupiter being conjunct my ascendant. So my Jupiter is in the 12th house, but it is 3 minutes away from my ascendant. So it's really straddling, the 12th and the first house. And um, what I wrote, and this is before I knew too much about astrology or even about myself. I mean, astrology was a way that I was trying to figure the heck out of myself. But what I wrote in my ignorance back then was as Jupiter is on my ascendant, I shall expand myself through karmic works, helping to transform unhelpful energy on this earth in individuals. Whoa, like that is very Jupiterian and very scorpionic. And it covers both those 12th house themes and the first house themes. And just in case you're not aware, like the 12th house is the other realms and what we don't see. It's our connection back to source. It's karma, and the first house is self. So again, I think the universe was already like giving me these downloads. So I'm really glad I went back and looked at that because again, as someone with Jupiter on my ascendant, I really have to believe in what I am doing. Like it has to be in my heart and resonate with me, or I'm not really going to do it. And I think that also is why once I kind of stopped numbing myself with alcohol and behaviors, that Jupiterian part of me really started coming out even more. And I couldn't keep doing the work I was doing because I didn't quite believe in it the way that I thought I did, or I wasn't doing it for the reasons that were super authentic to me. So the other thing that I noticed is that I also have that go big or go big, not go big or go home. It's like go big or go bigger. And um, I was a runner and kind of, I did some, 5 and 10 Ks, but I kind of skipped half marathons. I went right to marathons. And then that wasn't enough. So I went to ultra marathons and I started doing these mountain runs, up to 100 miles and just out there, like with the mountain lions and things, like on my own, oftentimes. So, anyway, there was that. And then this year, for the higher education piece, I'm doing these three things at once, and it's kind of ambitious. I'm doing my evolutionary astrology certification with the Jeffrey Wolf Green School, a 1 year herbalist certification with the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, and my yoga teacher training, all this year. But again, to me, it feels good. It doesn't feel sometimes it feels a little intense, but it feels cozy to me, and that's probably because I have Jupiter right there on my ascendant. I hope you feel empowered to be consciously curious about Jupiter and Sagittarius in your chart. And I will see you on the next episode. Thank you. Bye.